This week's Unabridged column tackles the increasing problem of worker shortages in New Zealand's horticulture and other sectors. Simon Bridges joins me. Now, Simon, you've been keeping a close eye on Zespri. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, Zespri's great corporate, one of our best actually, and I've always admired about them is the way science and innovation and brand work together to create a very high value product that's a bit more than just an ordinary or a mere commodity, if you like. But they've got real problems. I mean, the CEO has made clear at their AGM very recently that fruit is rotting. The quality isn't there as it has been in the past, as bad it's been quite a long time, and the markets offshore are noticing that. Now, the reason for this and the reason why revenue isn't what it could be is a bit more than this, but fundamentally one big factor, and that's lack of workers.
Now, you acknowledge in your column that it's not just New Zealand that's having these worker shortages, but places like Australia, the UK.
Absolutely.
How do we compete with these countries?
Well, I think that's really the critical point. We could carp on about the issue itself, and at one level there's a reason to do that. It's not just horticulture, of course, it's across the board, it's cross-sectorial. But the real question is, well, what do we and what should we do about that? And the government is reacting. I mean, it does seem to, on a relatively regular basis, make tweaks, changes to bring in more workers. In the last week or two, it's done a bit of that with worker holiday numbers doubling, and also in certain sectors more changes. But just a bit better, unfortunately, is not good enough. And that's for a couple of reasons. There's administrative issues in New Zealand. That is Immigration New Zealand. The clear feedback I get isn't doing what it always needs to with the excellence that I suppose we really need from this, given the size of the issue. And then there's the other question. It's all very well what we do, but it's how we compare to those other countries. And it seems very clear, actually, if we take just Australia, for example, they're more enabling, they're more willing, they understand that there's a global battle for talent, and they're bringing people in, and they're also providing a path to residence. And so these are all things where, as I say, a bit better, unfortunately, is not good enough. It's a contest, if you like, for a very limited pool of skilled workers.
So it seems that the government's tried to make these changes. They haven't gone far enough. How fast do they need to react to make sure we don't lose more workers?
It's absolutely a pressing issue. I don't think there's a small, medium-sized business, probably not too many bigger businesses either, that wouldn't be feeling this and reacting to this. So it's a pressing issue. And I think what's required, and this is by no means to damn the government, as I say, I think they are reacting and listening at a level, but is a clear, across-the-board, streamlined, easier immigration settings, and more than that, administration of them as well. And I think the point I conclude with, and it's one I've made before, but I think it's such a strong point if I do say so myself. Look, as we look at a world that may or may not, but certainly there is the threat of recession, one clear way for New Zealand to be in a better position to have more GDP, more revenue, is to ensure that businesses in the short, medium term have the workers they need through those immigration settings I've already talked about.
Mm-hmm. And it's a tricky one to solve, though, because New Zealand's wages aren't necessarily as high as in Australia. How do businesses get the workers they need when they can't pay them as much as in Australia?
Yeah, well, I think right at the moment there's a point there, and some of those things we just can't control. And as much as if you look at Australia's economy, it's resources intense, hard commodities. They can dig stuff up and make a lot of money about that. There are some things we control, though. We could ensure that our immigration settings are, like I said, across the board, streamlined and easy. And what that would mean in practice is that, for example, rather than the young Indian health worker that I read about, I think in RNZ, leaving the country, or certainly considering leaving the country for Australia, she would know she has a pathway to residence here that's every bit as good as what Australia is offering, and that would keep us in that battle for talent and keep us competitive in that battle.
Simon, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.